in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 1988. A crime unfolded that would leave a mark on the city for decades. At the center was Harold Wayne Nichols, a man whose actions would shock the community and challenge the limits of the justice system. For years, Nichols lived among ordinary people, but his past carried a history of crimes that authorities were only beginning to piece together. As the years passed, the legal process slowly caught up. Nichols was convicted and sentenced to death, yet even decades later, questions remained unanswered. Every delay, every appeal, every legal dispute kept the story in the headlines, drawing public attention and scrutiny. Now, hours away from his scheduled execution, the world watched closely. The courts faced pressure to maintain transparency, the public demanded justice, and families affected by his crimes still waited for closure. What would unfold in these final hours would reveal not only the facts of his crimes but also the challenges of carrying out justice in a system weighed down by law, ethics, and public expectation. If you think you can handle the truth behind justice and crime, hit subscribe now. Don't let this story pass you by. Those who hesitate, comment below why you're letting this story go unseen. Subscribe to stay updated on every twist in cases like this. You'll want to know what happens next. Harold Wayne Nichols was born on December 31, 1960, in Cleveland, Tennessee. From an early age, his life was marked by instability, brushes with the law, and behaviors that would later define a disturbing pattern. By the late 1980s, Nichols had accumulated a record of serious offenses in Chattanooga, including multiple sexual assaults. These prior crimes would become central to understanding the trajectory that ultimately led to one of Tennessee's most closely watched criminal cases. Karen Pulley, 20 years old at the time, was a student at Chattanooga State University. She lived an ordinary life in the Brainerd area, surrounded by friends, classmates, and a community that believed in safety and trust. Pulley's routines, like attending classes and spending time with friends, were typical of a young woman at that stage of life. Yet, unknowingly, her path would intersect with Nichols in a way that would leave the community grappling with questions about security, oversight, and accountability. On the night of September 30, 1988, Pulley's daily routine came to an abrupt and tragic turning point. While investigators later reconstructed the sequence of events, what immediately became apparent was that law enforcement would face the complex task of linking Nichols to the crime. At the time, he was already under scrutiny for other serious offenses, and authorities relied on detailed interviews, forensic evidence, and careful record-keeping to build a comprehensive case. By early January 1989, Nichols was arrested in connection with unrelated charges, which opened the door for investigators to connect him to the Pulley case. It was through a combination of previous convictions, patterns of behavior, and law enforcement persistence that Nichols' involvement was eventually confirmed. During questioning, Nichols provided a detailed statement outlining his connection to Pulley, offering investigators critical insight that accelerated the legal process. Beyond the immediate facts of the crime, the community and authorities began to confront broader questions. How had Nichols been able to commit multiple offenses over time without detection? What measures failed in preventing his actions? And how would the legal system handle a man whose record included repeated serious offenses, now intersecting with a case that had captured public attention? This chapter of the story sets the stage for the criminal proceedings, the scrutiny of the justice system, and the extended timeline that would eventually lead to Nichols' conviction and sentencing. It establishes the stakes, the investigative challenges, and the critical connection between the perpetrator and the victim, all while maintaining focus on factual accuracy and the progression of events. If you're committed to understanding how justice unfolds, subscribe now. Don't let these lessons in law and investigation slip past you. Leave a comment if you think the system could have done more. Stay with us to see every step of this case unfold. The investigation into Harold Wayne Nichols' connection to Karen Pulley began in earnest after his January 1989 arrest on separate charges. Law enforcement officials immediately noted patterns in Nichols' prior offenses, and his history of violent crimes became a central focus. Detectives reviewed reports from past cases, including witness statements and prior arrest records, to establish links between Nichols and the Pulley case. In the days following the discovery of Pulley's disappearance, authorities conducted extensive interviews with friends, neighbors, and acquaintances. These interviews provided critical insight into her last known movements and interactions. Investigators meticulously reconstructed timelines, comparing Nichols' whereabouts to Pulley's routines. Every detail was logged, from the locations he frequented to the individuals he associated with. By early February 1989, the evidence had begun to form a coherent picture. Nichols was questioned multiple times, and law enforcement obtained statements that clarified his activities and movements. During these sessions, Nichols acknowledged certain interactions that aligned with investigative findings. Detectives also reviewed material evidence collected from surrounding areas, including items that corroborated witness accounts. While law enforcement never publicly disclosed every aspect of the evidence, it was clear that these investigative steps were pivotal in building the case. Forensic analysis played a crucial role in confirming Nichols' involvement. Specialists examined relevant evidence using standard procedures, ensuring that all findings were admissible in court. Investigators cross-referenced this data with prior incidents, highlighting recurring patterns in Nichols' behavior. The methodical approach provided both context and credibility, strengthening the prosecution's case while ensuring procedural accuracy. During the investigation, law enforcement also faced broader challenges. Nichols' prior offenses had not triggered sufficient intervention to prevent future crimes, prompting questions about systemic oversight. Investigators worked carefully to document every lead and verify every claim, aware that this case carried both legal and public significance. The diligence of authorities during this period ensured that the case could proceed to the courtroom with a clear and verifiable record of Nichols' actions and involvement. The crime and investigation phase established the foundation for prosecution. It revealed the thoroughness required in linking past offenses to current charges and highlighted the complexities of building a case against a repeat offender. This stage of the story demonstrates the critical intersection of methodical investigation, forensic confirmation, and law enforcement persistence, all necessary to bring clarity to a case that had haunted the Chattanooga community. If you want to see justice unfold step by step, subscribe now. Don't let these investigative details go unnoticed. Those who hesitate, leave a comment explaining why you're letting this story pass by. Stay with us to witness the courtroom battles that followed. Hit subscribe to ensure you don't miss a single moment. By 1990, the case against Harold Wayne Nichols reached the courtroom. Nichols faced charges for first-degree murder and multiple sexual assaults, with evidence compiled over months of meticulous investigation forming the foundation for prosecution. The trial was set in Hamilton County, Tennessee, and drew significant attention from both local and national media. The prosecution focused on demonstrating Nichols' consistent pattern of behavior. Investigators presented evidence from prior offenses to establish context, showing repeated actions that informed the seriousness of the charges. Witnesses were called to testify about their interactions with Nichols, timelines, and observations that connected him to the crimes under review. Each testimony was carefully cross-examined to ensure accuracy and reliability. Defense attorneys questioned aspects of evidence handling and investigative procedures, seeking to challenge the narrative presented by the prosecution. They scrutinized interviews, the timing of statements, and the methods used to collect and verify information. The courtroom became a space where procedural rigor was as crucial as factual presentation, with both sides emphasizing the importance of a fair trial. Jury deliberations considered the weight of the evidence, Nichols' criminal history, and the implications of prior convictions. The deliberation process was thorough, reflecting the complexity of the case and the legal system's responsibility to ensure justice. Ultimately, the jury reached a verdict, finding Nichols guilty on all charges. Sentencing followed shortly thereafter, resulting in a death penalty for the murder conviction and additional consecutive sentences for the other offenses. Throughout the trial, questions arose regarding public transparency and procedural standards. Media outlets closely monitored developments, and the case highlighted systemic issues, including oversight of repeat offenders and the challenges of ensuring that serious crimes are prevented before escalation. Legal experts emphasized that this trial would serve as a reference point for both prosecutorial strategy and courtroom procedure in complex criminal cases. This segment of the documentary underscores the critical role of the legal system in assessing evidence, balancing procedural fairness, and delivering a verdict that reflects the severity of the crimes committed. It sets the stage for the later appeals, discussions about execution protocols, and public debate surrounding capital punishment in Tennessee. If you want to follow the courtroom drama and legal decisions in full detail, subscribe now. Don't miss how justice unfolds. Those who hesitate, leave a comment explaining why you won't witness these legal proceedings. Subscribe to ensure you stay informed about each twist and ruling in cases like this. As Harold Wayne Nichols' appeals ran their course, the focus shifted to the legal and procedural aspects of his impending execution. By 2020, Tennessee, like several other states, faced a shortage of approved lethal injection drugs, raising questions about how executions could be carried out in compliance with the law. Legal teams representing Nichols sought clarity, requesting detailed information about the substances to be used and whether they met safety and regulatory standards. In early 2022, an independent review revealed that none of Tennessee's lethal injection drugs had undergone proper testing. This discovery prompted delays in execution statewide, including Nichols' case. The review did not dispute the legality of the death penalty itself but highlighted gaps in protocol and oversight. Authorities were forced to respond, providing explanations and procedural updates to satisfy both the courts and public scrutiny. Nichols' attorneys also challenged the Department of Corrections on transparency. They argued that the public and media were entitled to full information about the execution process, citing the importance of accountability and legal compliance. This led to a lawsuit filed by media organizations, including TEGNA, against the head of the Tennessee Department of Corrections and the warden at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison. The suit contended that critical parts of the execution process remained shielded, raising questions about the balance between security, privacy, and public interest. In parallel, discussions emerged about alternative methods of execution in other states, such as South Carolina and Alabama, where legal challenges prompted the adoption of different approaches. Tennessee's situation reflected broader national debates on capital punishment, procedural integrity, and public confidence in the justice system. During this period, state officials, including Governor Bill Lee, reviewed clemency requests and appeals. The legal process, combined with public attention, placed Nichols' case at the center of discussions about ethics, oversight, and execution protocols. Observers noted that the delays and controversies were not solely about one individual but illustrated systemic challenges in administering capital punishment under modern standards. This phase of the case underscores the intersection of law, policy, and public accountability. It highlights how execution procedures, drug testing, and transparency became critical points of contention, ultimately shaping the path toward the scheduled execution. The controversy surrounding the protocol added tension and urgency to the story, reinforcing the stakes for the legal system, media, and community alike. Subscribe now to follow the legal battles and see how procedure and policy impact justice. Don't miss a single development. Leave a comment if you think the system should be more transparent. Your voice matters. Hit subscribe to witness how legal oversight shaped this case and others like it. The legal and procedural developments in Harold Wayne Nichols' case sparked broader discussion about capital punishment in Tennessee and across the United States. Scholars, legal analysts, and journalists examined how the delays, appeals, and scrutiny of execution protocols highlighted challenges within the justice system. Questions arose about accountability, oversight, and the balance between public transparency and procedural security. Experts emphasized that Nichols' case was not unique in demonstrating systemic issues. Tennessee, like several other states, faced difficulty maintaining approved lethal injection supplies, which created uncertainty about execution timelines and raised legal questions about adherence to regulations. This scenario underscored the importance of verified procedures and careful documentation, showing how even established legal systems encounter challenges when enforcing the ultimate penalty. The case also prompted reflection on the role of media and public awareness. Lawsuits filed by media organizations emphasized the right to information, insisting that critical components of the execution process remain accessible to the public. These actions highlighted the tension between institutional privacy and the demand for accountability, illustrating how the intersection of law, policy, and media oversight shapes public understanding of capital punishment. Nichols' attorneys argued that procedural gaps warranted scrutiny, pointing to the lack of testing for lethal injection drugs and the transparency of execution protocols. Legal observers noted that these challenges, while technical, carry significant weight in ensuring that justice is administered correctly and ethically. The procedural discussions surrounding Nichols' execution offered insight into the complexities of the death penalty, demonstrating that beyond the individual case lies a system grappling with legal, ethical, and operational realities. Beyond policy, the analysis also considered the impact on communities affected by Nichols' crimes. Law enforcement, the courts, and local residents were all participants in a process that extended over decades. Their involvement highlighted the broader consequences of serious criminal activity and the persistent attention required to maintain oversight, prevent further offenses, and uphold public confidence in legal institutions. This portion establishes the critical context for understanding Nichols' case within the broader landscape of criminal justice. It explores how systemic challenges, media scrutiny, and public expectations converge in cases involving capital punishment, offering viewers insight into both the legal process and the societal impact of high-profile convictions. Subscribe now to see how cases like this influence justice policy. Don't miss the lessons learned. Leave a comment if you think transparency is essential in criminal justice. Hit subscribe to follow every detail in cases that shape public understanding of law and procedure. The Harold Wayne Nichols case remains one of Tennessee's most closely examined criminal cases, not only for the severity of the offenses but also for the legal, procedural, and societal lessons it revealed. The investigation, trial, and execution controversy demonstrated how law enforcement, the judicial system, and public oversight intersect in complex criminal matters. The conviction of Nichols reflected a culmination of methodical investigation, careful evidence gathering, and persistent attention from authorities. Every statement, every verified fact, and every procedural step contributed to building a case that could withstand legal scrutiny. Nichols' prior criminal history, the patterns of repeated offenses, and the timely work of investigators were central to understanding how justice was pursued and ultimately achieved. From a legal perspective, the case exposed areas of procedural vulnerability, particularly regarding capital punishment. Delays caused by shortages in lethal injection drugs and the scrutiny over protocol highlighted the importance of transparency and adherence to regulations. Media oversight and public inquiry emphasized that the administration of justice does not occur in isolation. Accountability, communication, and procedural accuracy are critical to maintaining public trust. The societal implications are equally significant. Communities affected by violent crime, law enforcement personnel, and legal professionals all navigated a case that spanned decades. Awareness of prior offender patterns, timely investigation, and active public engagement are essential to preventing repeated offenses and maintaining a sense of safety. The case reminds viewers that vigilance and systemic oversight are not abstract concepts, they directly impact lives and communities. Beyond procedural lessons, the Nichols case serves as a cautionary reflection on how early interventions, consistent monitoring of offenders, and clear communication between authorities could reduce risk and improve outcomes. The case also underscores the broader ethical and legal conversations surrounding capital punishment, demonstrating how individual cases influence public policy and legal standards. For viewers, the story provides a layered understanding of criminal behavior, investigative rigor, legal procedure, and the long-term consequences of systemic challenges. It also illustrates how informed observation, civic engagement, and legal awareness play a role in shaping justice. Subscribe now to stay informed about real criminal cases and see how the legal system navigates complex decisions. Leave a comment if you believe early intervention and oversight can prevent repeat offenses. Hit subscribe to follow the lessons these cases teach about law, policy, and community safety. Don't just watch, subscribe and be part of the conversation on how justice and accountability intersect in real life.